Welcome, Koil Baker. Today's class is being dedicated to the memory of Yaakov Chaim Moshe ben Yeshua. His neshama should have an aliyah, and we should have only good news in the community, only good things. We should pray for all who knew him, for Klal Yisrael. There's this discussion, especially these days, about intermittent fasting, where people are fasting for 12 hours straight, 16 hours straight, where your last meal at night until your next meal the next day is you space it out 12 hours, 16 hours is supposed to be good. There's others that say that, on the contrary, you should have more meals, smaller meals, and more often because it's better for your metabolism and it's your body needs it and it gives you more energy. There are various different schools of thought. We have in this parsha a reference to 3 meals, not every day, but 3 meals on Shabbos. And you could infer from the various different things that are being explained in the commentaries that those days people only ate 1 meal a day. That was normal. Shabbos was unique that there was more. And what I'm getting at is when the Jewish people were in the desert, we had food. And the way that we had food, it was miraculous food. It came down from heaven. The Torah relates to us this week's parsha how the mun, or in English, the manna, would fall from heaven every day. And that's what the Jewish people ate. And it was a very special food. It tasted like whatever you wanted it to taste like. Some say even the texture was whatever food you wanted that had that texture to it. But if you were in the mood of having pizza, or you were in the mood of having sushi, or you were in the mood of having whatever you were in the mood of, that's what it tasted like. It was miraculous. If you were a tzaddik, the righteous people, you came outside of your tent, and it was right there, it was ready for you. You just pick it up in the morning, and you have your food. If you were not such a good guy, and there was some room, or more than some room for improvement, then you had to go collect it. You had to go out a little bit and gather it and bring it in. And then you eat it. If somebody was wicked, the third category, or the shayim, wicked, evil people, they had to go out to a distance to gather the mun, and then they also needed to prepare it, grind it, and turn it into food. So it was, nonetheless, though, it was miraculous food. If we take this, explore it a little bit more, we find another fascinating, miraculous component, that every person got a certain measurement. In Hebrew, it's called the Omer measurement of mun. And if you went out and you decided you want to take a little bit more than an Omer, and you did, and you came home, you still only had an Omer. So regardless of how much you gathered, and it worked the other way around as well. If you took too little, let's assume that a person went and didn't manage to get the full Omer for whatever reason. He came home and he measured or weighed, he has an Omer. Miraculous thing. Strangely, the first Friday, when the Jewish people went to gather the mun, they came home and they saw that they have a double portion. They didn't mean to gather double, but they have 2 Omers. And they came to Moshe wondering what's the significance of this? Why do we have a double portion of the Omer? And Moshe told them like this. And I want to use the pasuk, the verse, because it's important for the continuation of the class. Moshe Rabbeinu said, "Vayimer Moshe." Moshe said, "Ichluhu hayom, eat it today. Ki Shabbos hayom, Hashem. It's going to be Shabbos today. Hayom leisum tz'uhu basada." What happened was, Moshe told them it's going to be for Shabbos. They kept it. The next morning, which was Shabbos, nothing wormed, nothing spoiled. Normally, if you didn't finish your Omer, then by the time the next morning comes, it was moldy, it was wormy, you couldn't eat it. The next morning, it was fine. You were able to eat that extra portion. And Moshe Rabbeinu told them, you should eat it today, because it's Shabbos today. Today, you're not going to find any mun in the field. And Chazal, our sages tell us in Gemara, Masechta Shabbos, Kuf Yutes Amud Beis, the Gemara says that these 3 times it says the word Hayom is referencing to 3 meals. That on Shabbos a person should have 3 sudays: Friday night, Shabbos day, and Shabbos late afternoon, a 3rd meal. And we learned this from the fact that it says Hayyim 3 times in the parsha, in this week's parsha, when it talks about the mud. But then the Gemara continues, an interesting thing, and I want to explore that today. The Gemara says, Rabbi Chanina said, a person should always set up his table for a meal on Motzei Shabbos. Saturday night after Shabbos ends, you should have a meal. Even if all you need is the amount of an olive, which is a halachic measurement, but a small amount of food. Still, you're not really in the mood of eating. You don't have to eat so much. You're not going to eat so much. Set up a meal. Do it in an honorable way, escorting the Shabbos. Okay, so we have reference to 3 meals on Shabbos, and after Shabbos ends, a 4th meal. Rashi explains that following Shabbos, on Motzei Shabbos, Nami Kavod Shabbos is also honor for Shabbos to escort the Shabbos. Just like a person who has a guest, the king came to visit you. When the king leaves, he doesn't just walk out. You go and you escort him. You take him on his way. You walk with him a little bit. The same thing, Shabbos came. It's a very special holiness. It's compared to a queen. In other places, it's compared to the idea of a king. And Shabbos is leaving. You escort the Shabbos. And the way to escort the Shabbos is to have another meal in its honor. Now, to get a little bit technical, the Gemara discusses further if you have to have a full meal or not. And there's a story, the Gemara says about Rabbi Avohu, who every Motzei Shabbos, every Saturday night after Shabbos ended, he would take a baby calf that was 3 years old, which has a certain delicacy to it, a young calf, and they would prepare it for the meal. And all he would eat is 1 kidney of the animal, a small amount. The rest, I guess they would eat later, during the week or whatever. Rabbi Avohu's son, Avimi, grew up, and he realized this custom is happening all the time. So he asked his father, what's the point of shechting, slaughtering, preparing a whole calf? It's a baby one, but a whole thing. But all you need is 1 kidney. You'll have it later. Have it next time you need it. Why do you have to go use a whole animal? Friday night, when we have the meat, we could save 1 kidney. We'll have it the next night from Malava Malka. His father said, okay, makes sense. And that's what they did. The next week, they saved 1 kidney from the animal Friday night, their Shabbos meal, and Saturday night, that's what they ate. A lion came and devoured the calf. You see 2 things from here. Number 1, that you don't have to have a full meal, although our custom, and it's pretty clear that the Rebbe was careful to wash from Lava Malka. But halachically speaking, you don't need to have a full meal for Shabbos. Again, many people are careful to wash and have a whole suda. Avdimi, all he had was a small amount. And secondly, the importance of it, that you should have a new dish, something special. Don't just do leftovers. You can do leftovers, but add a little bit more to the honor of Shabbos. Do something additional. And indeed, the Magen Avraham tells us that these days when Shalosh Shudish, the 3rd meal is late, and therefore it comes at night, you just don't have an appetite for a 4th meal, especially if your meals on Shabbos are longer and later and heavier. It's enough, he says, to have just some fruit. You could have a few fruits from Lava Malka, and you could fulfill this obligation of this 4th meal known as the Malava Malka, escorting the queen. Now again, the Chabad custom is that for Shalosh Shudish we have a snack instead of a full meal, fruit or so on. And Malava Malka, we're careful to have a full meal. But I want to ask you a question. If you want to escort the Shabbos queen, Shabbos leaves when you make Havdalah. Make Havdalah, Shabbos leaves. Why don't you have the meal right then? Shabbos left. You made Havdalah, you said Vita Lecha, whatever your minhag, your custom is, you put away the stuff from Havdalah, and now you sit down, I don't know, an hour later, 2 hours later, right away, but you sit down and you decide to have a meal. Shabbos left. Why don't you make a meal? At this meal, make Havdalah, like you do for a Kiddush, and then you could escort this whole idea of doing this meal later on Saturday night, or it doesn't necessarily have to be at the beginning, is strange. It's like Are you escorting the Shabbos or you're not escorting the Shabbos? What's the malava here? And while we're at it, I want to ask another question. What's the point of having a 7-day week? Who needs a 7-day week? 24-hour cycle, okay, we understand the way the sun cycles and can reference to the earth. 24 hours makes sense. A year makes sense. The orbit of the sun around the earth, fine. A month also makes sense. The way things go, 30 days with the moon renews itself and so on, it makes a full cycle. But why 7 days? What 7 days have to do with anything? And the truth is that there have been times in history where people tried to change it. After the French Revolution, they tried to make a 10-day week. Who needs a 7-day? I mean, I get you have to have some kind of, it's better not to have only a month. I'll meet you on the 17th day of the month. It's easier if you say Tuesday or next Tuesday. But why 7? Why not 5? Why not? And they tried it for about 10 years. It lasted, and then they went back to 7 days. I think Russia tried in the 20s to do a 5-day week. But whatever it is, people have tried to change it, and somehow it always reverts back to the 7-day week. What's the significance and what's the point of a 7-day week specifically? So in order to understand this, let's explore a little bit the idea of Shabbos, but from a deeper approach, from a Kabbalistic insight. What is Shabbos? What really happens on Shabbos in regard to the week before and the week after? And we'll understand our question about Lava Malka and the Saturday night and so on and so forth. So the Alter Rebbe brings in Likutei Torah, the Maimer of Shabbos Shuvah. He says as follows: that the term Shvisa, resting, for that day he rested, we find by Hashem. What's this idea of Hashem resting? It's like a person that's resting. When a person wants to relax, what's really going on when you relax? Your mind was involved in something. You were focused on something. And then when you relax, when you rest, your mind is going back to its source. Okay, it parks, it charges, if you will. In a way, that's what Hashem was doing. Obviously, Hashem doesn't need any of this, but that's the way he chose to operate. That a whole week he was working, creating a world, and then he rested, meaning all of the spiritual energy that's used to create, which obviously is intense energy, goes back to its source. It returns back to its place, which its place is obviously a very spiritual level. Which means that Shabbos contains within itself a level which Kabbalistically is known as L'mayla me'hishtalshelos. Loosely translated, this is above any of the stages of creation. It's a very high godly level, or very high revelation of godliness, of holiness, which happens on Shabbos. That means Shabbos, the day itself, regardless of what you do or don't do, the day itself represents a special holiness. As referenced by the fact that Hashem rested on this day, meaning the powers used went back to their source. And it ends. So it was 6 days of work, a 7th day of rest, and it's over. There's no more spiritual energy for creation. It went back to its source. Sunday starts a new dose of godly energy that sustains the world for the week. That's why the Rebbe brings, he says that if you look in the davening, every day we have a psalm, Shir Shal Yom, for each day. What do we say? We say Hayom Yom Rishon, Hayom Yom Sheni. This is the first day. This is the second day. Day 1, day 2. It's not day 1. It's not day 2. We've had many days already since creation. Right? It's thousands. Well, what's this idea of day 1, day 2? It's much more. And the answer is because, in a sense, every week you have a new energy that starts that week. Because Shabbos, everything went back to its source. Which means that every week you have a new opportunity. Every week it starts again. Why didn't Hashem do one energy for the whole existence? There's a reason. Every Shabbos is almost like a restart. Every Shabbos has a new flow of energy for that week. So let's summarize and explore what the Shabbos represent. On the one hand, Shabbos is last week's divine powers, which go back to their source. That's happening on Shabbos. It's last week's energy. Number two, we said Shabbos is a transcendence because Hashem's holiness, godliness goes up in a very high level. So this day represents transcending the physical world the way we know it. And thirdly, this day gives us new energy for the coming week. Shabbos is the start. It gives us the new blessings. It gives us the new spiritual powers. It gives us energy for the following week. And this is why the Zohar, the main book of Kabbalah, tells us that all earthly and heavenly blessings depend on the seventh day, which means Shabbos produces all blessings, both in the spiritual sense and in the physical sense. Rabbi Yehuda said we have to delight on this day and have 3 meals on Shabbos to fill the world with delight and satisfaction on that day. But the concept is that Shabbos contains in it such a powerful idea. It's the culmination of the prior week itself is very transcendent and a spiritual day, and it blesses the coming day. That's why it says Hashem blessed the day. Hashem blessed the seventh day. We say this in Kiddush, we lift the cup while we're holding the cup. And he sanctified it. So he blessed it and he sanctified it. What's this two things? So the Medrash tells us that Rabbi Shmuel said he blessed it with man and he sanctified it with man. He blessed it with man because he had a double portion. Right in the desert, we had a double portion on Friday. That was a blessing that we should have food for Shabbos. He sanctified it, means it's holy. You can't have any man come down today. No man descended on Shabbos. Why? Because on the one hand, Shabbos is blessed. You have extra. On the other hand, Shabbos is too holy to be able to connect with this world on that level where you should have man coming down. So Shabbos is the source of the blessing for the whole week. It's the source of the physical flows that we need, but itself is not physical. It's a very spiritual thing. So now we have a problem. Shabbos represents holiness and separation from the world. Disconnect. At the same time, Shabbos is flowing to the coming week. But it's separate from the coming week. So where do you have that connection? And this is the key to Melava Malka. It says like this. What happened by the man? In Yiddishkeit in Torah we have two opposites. Sometimes the night precedes the day. So Shabbos starts Friday night and goes into Shabbos. By Erev, there was evening and then there was morning. That's what it says by creation. The first prayer is Maidiv and so on. At the same time, you have regarding Kodshim and other things when it comes to sacrifices and different services in the Beis HaMikdash, you have Halayla Hoylech Achar Hayom. The night follows the day. Man was a way that the night followed the day. You had man in the morning, and that was your man for the day. The next day, it started in the morning.
The format in Torah.
Fine. But the man represent that element.
Okay.
Now, Shabbos was the same thing. You had double portion, right? So you ate on Friday, and then you ate Friday night. And the Shabbos morning you ate, and then Motzei Shabbos, Saturday night, Melava Malka, that's what you ate, the same man from the morning. The night followed the morning. What's going on here is we want to take the energy of Shabbos, which is disconnected from the physical world, and bring it into the physical world. All of the blessings that we have, material, physical, whether it comes to it's brought down, building houses, sewing clothes, earning money, all of these things originate in Shabbos. But Shabbos, you can't do any of those things. It's separate. What's the connector? What's the relay switch from the spiritual separation to the physical reality? That's Melava Malka. When you have that physical meal, what it's doing is it's taking the energy of Shabbos and it's bringing it into the physical world. Because it's not Shabbos anymore, but the food that you're having, even if it's a new dish, which should be a new dish, originates in Shabbos. It's a meal for Shabbos, but it's happening after Shabbos. So you're taking the energy of Shabbos into the week. That's what the Yidden did in the desert. The man belonged to a Shabbos man. It wasn't Sunday man, but they ate it Saturday night. So this answers our question. You don't have to do it right at Havdalah. You could. But Saturday night, until you don't have the Melava Malka, you're not taking the energy from Shabbos into the week. It's a very spiritual type of connection. When you have a meal, which is physical, on a weeknight, because it's Saturday night, it's not Shabbos anymore, but the meal is in the honor of Shabbos, you're taking Shabbos with you to the week, and you're bringing the spiritual elements into the physical, which is what we need. Okay, so there's three parts here. There's the spiritual, which is Shabbos. There's a physical, which is the coming week. Then you have the middle part, that's the connector. That is Mitzvah Shabbos. That's the Malav Malka. Clear?
Yeah.
Thank you. Let's take a little bit and go into, no?
Why don't combine $50 with it? It's inconvenient, people.
Because it's not just that you make a blessing and now Shabbos is leaving. It's not about Shabbos leaving now. Tonight represents taking Shabbos with you into the week. So it's not about the Havdalah and now Shabbos is gone. It's a process. And you want to have it more weekday than Shabbos. You want to have it, the weekday is taking it. Let's go a little bit deeper. There's a fascinating Kabbalah which tells us that during Milava Malka you should say, Dahi Sudasa de David Malka Meshicha, which means this is the meal of David, King Mashiach. Somehow this meal is connected to Mashiach. How so? So Chazal, our sages tell us that there is a certain limb in the body. It's called a luz. Okay? It doesn't get nourished from any type of eating. It doesn't have physical satisfaction, development from any type of food. It's in the back of the neck or the top of the neck of a person. And it's brought in Svardim, our sages tell us that whatever you'll do to this luz bone, you will not destroy it. You could put it in a fire, it won't burn. You could put it in a millstone, it won't get ground. You could smash it with a sledgehammer, it won't break. The luz bone has a quality to it, a physical quality, that it's indestructible. Shabbos, it has no nourishment, and the only way it gets nourishment is Saturday night. When we eat by Malava Malka, that food is nourishing that luz bone. That's where it gets its energy from. I preface that it's going to be a little Kabbalistic. Now, Shabbos is an antidote to death. Here's what I mean. It says that when Mashiach will come, the bodies that have people that have passed away thousands of years ago, they come back to life. How do they come back to life? Their bodies have disintegrated. Okay? In other cases, unfortunately, bodies were destroyed. How do they come back to life? The body reforms itself from this luz bone. This luz bone has the quality which is indestructible, even if you try to burn it. And from that bone, it develops into the body, the full-fledged body. So that bone is very much connected to resurrection of the dead, which happens when Mashiach comes. The luz bone gets its nourishment from Mitzvah Shabbos, Saturday night, when you have Malava Malka. So Malava Malka is directly connected to, because originally when Hashem created the world, death was not part of the picture. People were supposed to live forever. What Hashem does is lasting. It doesn't end. A person's life doesn't end. But then Adam and Chava, they were given a commandment, one commandment. Don't eat from the forbidden fruit. And not many people know this, but the prohibition was only for 3+ hours. Once Shabbos begins, you could eat it. It was actually a way to sanctify the Shabbos with that fruit. But they couldn't contain themselves. And they ended up eating from the fruit. And because they ate from the fruit, once Shabbos came in, death was already in the world as a result of their eating. If they wouldn't have ate it and Shabbos would have come, Shabbos possessed the ability to overpower death, and death would not exist in this world. So Shabbos has that quality. Unfortunately, it was messed up before Shabbos began, the very original Shabbos, and therefore it exists in this world. But when Mashiach comes, we're going to go back to that original state. We're going to go back to that pre-sin era where Hashem created us, and we were living in a spirit of Gan Eden, in paradise, and everything was great. We're going to get there. And that getting there, where the body has come back to its full being, and those that passed come back to life, resurrection of the dead, that happens through this luzbon. And this luzbon is nourished through the food Motzei Shabbos, through that meal. So what you have here is just like Malava Malka serves as a conduit between Shabbos and the rest of the week, it brings that energy. Similarly, this luzbon, which brings the resurrection, that's the conduit which takes past, Golus, exile, pre-Mashiach era, and brings them into that era. This is a fascinating thing. I just want to wrap up with the following observation. It shows us that everything we do as Jews and as Torah mitzvahs, in general, living life properly, is a meaningful experience. When you're eating a meal, let's say Shabbos, you're taking something from Shabbos into the week. And it has to be physical. And it has to be a new dish. And you have to enjoy the concept. You're honoring Shabbos, and it does something. When a person eats, he's mindful. What am I doing here? Why am I doing this? Somebody once wrote to the Rebbe about dieting and how he was eating and wasn't eating, and various different questions. Among the answers that the Rebbe gave him was, when you eat, focus on why you're eating. And it helps the person. Because if you're just eating because it's fun, it's glutinous, and you just want to enjoy yourself, you're a foodie, you may eat too much and get sidetracked, eat the wrong types of food. But if you're thinking why I'm eating, I'm mindful because I'm accomplishing something, because it's healthy for me, because I need to do it, and so on and so forth, that helps the person in the way they eat, and they also eat better and more appropriate and so on. Let's experience that. And everything we do is a way of serving Hashem, everything we eat. And let's recognize the greatness of Shabbos, its spiritual qualities that it has, and what it brings to us and to the coming week. Thank you so much for joining. Please share this video, subscribe. If you're on Facebook, share it. If you're on YouTube, share it also, but subscribe. Comments are always welcome. Have a great day.
Yeah, sure. Go ahead.